What if the most iconic moments in space history never actually made it to your screen? What if the real footage, the sounds, the signals, the voices, was quietly erased? Or worse, buried? NASA claims it's all accounted for, but over the years, whispers have leaked of lost tapes, scrambled transmissions, and astronauts who saw things they were told to forget. Some of these stories were dismissed, others deleted, but pieces remain, scattered. And today, we're putting them back together. This is what they didn't want you to hear. The signal that shouldn't exist. In the middle of nowhere, just sand, wind, and silence, an aging satellite dish stood like a metal relic from a forgotten war. It hadn't received anything significant in years, just static. The occasional buzz. But on an ordinary Tuesday in 2002, that changed. A low, rhythmic pulse crackled through the system, like a heartbeat struggling to stay alive. At first, the technician on duty thought it was interference, maybe solar radiation or a misaligned dish. But as he adjusted the equipment, the signal grew stronger, sharper. It wasn't random, it was repeating, structured, almost intentional. Then came the pattern, a burst of tones, mathematically precise, as if someone or something was counting. But not in any known language, not binary, not Morse. Something older? Like it was trying to mimic human logic, but didn't quite understand it. The man called it in. Within hours, a black SUV rolled up to the isolated facility. Two men in suits, no badges. They asked no questions. They simply took the hard drives, confiscated the backups, and warned the technician not to talk. He didn't. But 20 years later, fragments of that signal began to surface again, embedded in static bursts captured during NASA's deep space communications. Same pulse, same pattern. And just as curiosity started to build, another story quietly resurfaced. One even older, even stranger. The lost tapes from Apollo 11. Tapes that were never supposed to disappear. Or so we thought. The missing Apollo 11 tapes. Everyone remembers the iconic moment. A shaky black and white image. A gloved foot pressing into lunar dust, and those immortal words drifting through time. That's one small step for man. But what if that's not all Neil said? July 1969, Apollo 11 lands on the moon. Millions watched it live. Or at least they think they did. Behind the broadcast, there was another feed, uncut, unfiltered, transmitted directly to NASA's receiving stations, stored in magnetic reels, crystal clear video, clean audio, the real story. And now, it's gone. Not misplaced, lost. Over 700 boxes of footage, covering everything from pre-launch prep to lunar surface activity, vanished without explanation. No formal investigation, no outrage. Just a quiet note from NASA years later. The tapes were likely erased and reused. But here's the strange part. Engineers who worked the mission swear they saw footage that never made it to air. One technician remembered a 5-minute blackout in the public broadcast, during which Neil and Buzz described something watching from the crater's edge. A presence, no confirmation, no follow-up, just silence. Later, internal memos surfaced, redacted, of course. One line stood out, circled in pen. Recommends suppression, public not ready. And as the legend of the missing tapes deepens, another event, less famous but far stranger, demands attention. A moment when 3 astronauts heard something no one could explain, coming from a place no sound should exist. The far side of the moon. Voices from the dark side of the moon. May 1969. Apollo 10 floats silently behind the moon on the far side, completely cut off from Earth. No radio signals, no live feed, just 3 men suspended in the void where time stretches and sound should not exist. But something did exist. As the capsule drifted into the radio blackout, the crew began to hear it. A whistling, not static, not mechanical. It danced and weaved through the headsets like music, but not made for humans. High-pitched, melodic, almost like a choir of machines whispering to each other through metal lungs. They laughed nervously, called it space music. But their voices trembled. When they re-established contact with Houston, no one mentioned it. Not at first. Only years later, when the declassified transcripts were quietly released, did the world catch a glimpse of what the astronauts really experienced. Do you hear that? That whistling sound? Yeah, it's weird. Spacey music. NASA dismissed it again. Called it interference between VHF radios. But experts argued the radios weren't even transmitting on that side. They couldn't. That part of the moon is a dead zone. So what made the sound? Theorists say the moon might not be as hollow as it seems. That vibrations echo inside it like a bell, or like something waiting to be heard. And if that's true, maybe Apollo 10 wasn't the only mission that encountered more than rock and silence. Because nearly 3 decades later, another mission would capture something far more visible than a whisper. Something that moved with purpose. And this time, it was caught on camera. The STS-75 incident. February 25th, 1996. The Space Shuttle Columbia rises like a blade through the sky, carrying with it one of NASA's more peculiar experiments. A 20-kilometer-long tethered satellite designed to generate electricity from Earth's magnetic field. It was elegant, ambitious, and completely unprepared for what came next. On day 4 of the mission, the tether deployed successfully, stretching out like a silver umbilical cord into the dark. Then, without warning, just snapped. 20 kilometers of tech, drifting helplessly into space. A minor failure, they said. But then came the feed. NASA's live broadcast, meant to show the tether floating calmly in orbit, captured something else. As the satellite drifted into shadow, shapes began to appear, translucent, disc-like, shifting in and out of view. They pulsed, moved, changed direction, and there weren't just 1 or 2, there were dozens, maybe hundreds. They circled the broken tether like moths drawn to a flame, some large enough to dwarf the shuttle, others flickering at the edge of the frame, as if aware they were being watched. Astronaut Franklin Chung Diaz can be heard in the footage, his voice tight. We have some, objects moving with the tether. NASA chalked it up to space debris and lens artifacts. But engineers questioned, why did the objects appear to respond to the camera's movement? Why did some seem to phase in and out, as if cloaked in a field we couldn't detect? The video was archived, then buried, but not before copies slipped through the cracks, resurfacing on late-night broadcasts, conspiracy forums, and encrypted servers. Years later, when Voyager 1 passed beyond the edge of the solar system, it sent back something else, something cold, cryptic, and impossible to classify. A signal, not a pulse, not a voice, but a code. The frozen message from Voyager 1. It was built to be our interstellar messenger, a golden record strapped to a dying probe, launched into the void with greetings, music, and hope. In 1977, Voyager 1 left Earth behind. By 2012, it had crossed the threshold into interstellar space. And then, something strange happened. The data stream changed. Deep inside NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the monitors began to flicker. Once predictable, Voyager's telemetry started sending unreadable fragments. Not just corrupted, unrecognizable. At first, they blamed radiation, cosmic interference. But the distortions formed patterns, jagged symbols, echoes of pulses that repeated again and again. One sequence in particular froze the analysis team in place. A block of compressed information that, when visualized, resembled a waveform not unlike a voice. And here's the thing. The signal had no earthly timestamp. The energy signature didn't match the probe's hardware. It was as if Voyager had picked up something foreign, something responding. A linguistics specialist brought in to analyze the signal described it as a recursive loop with embedded shifts, like it was trying to teach us how to read it. And then, just as suddenly, the signal stopped. Voyager resumed normal function. The code never appeared again. But in the months that followed, one of the project's lead analysts, Dr. Elijah Kearns, abruptly resigned. No interviews, no farewell. Just a cryptic note left on his whiteboard. Not a message, a mirror. He disappeared weeks later, and that would have been the end of it. Until a forgotten interview from years earlier resurfaced. A former astronaut, now recluse, describing something watching him from the darkness of space. Something with eyes. And this time, the warning wouldn't come in binary. It came through a human voice, his own voice. The astronaut who tried to speak out. He was a name once whispered in admiration. A hero. A man who had seen Earth from above and returned changed. But after his third mission, he vanished from the spotlight. No books, no lectures, just silence. Until one interview, one forgotten podcast episode recorded in a dim room late at night. The host expected stories about zero gravity and spacewalks. What he got instead was a confession. The astronaut's voice was calm at first, steady, but as he spoke, cracks formed, like a man dragging truth through quicksand. It was during re-entry prep. We were over the Pacific, instruments offline, windows fogged from the inside. That's when I saw it, just beyond the capsule glass. No reflection, no stars, just watching. The host asked what it looked like. A pause, a shallow breath. Like us, but not trying to be. Like a memory wearing a suit it didn't belong in. He claimed it wasn't the first time, that other astronauts had whispered of similar encounters. Shadows outside windows, voices beneath static, things that stared without blinking. The episode was uploaded at 2:13 a.m. By sunrise, it was gone. The host denied ever airing it. The platform flagged it as corrupted content. And the astronaut? Found in his home days later. Alive but unresponsive. Just sitting. Staring at the night sky. Eyes wide. Lips moving without sound. No one could hear what he was trying to say. But some believe his message wasn't meant for us. Not really. And if that's true, then maybe those other tapes, the ones NASA refuses to even acknowledge, aren't lost at all. Maybe they're waiting. So, if these tapes were truly lost, why do fragments still surface? Why do the same symbols and sounds keep coming back? Maybe the truth isn't hidden or echoing, waiting for someone to finally listen. And if this was just the beginning, what else have they kept from us? If you want to dive deeper into the world's most unsettling mysteries, download my ebook, Hidden Truths. The stories they don't teach you, but you can't forget. And if you're not ready to stop questioning, hit subscribe. Because here at CurioSphere, the truth is never where they say it is.